This is the recording for Mrs. Lindsay's U.S. History 303B final exam. Special Code Hunt. Instructions. This test contains 40 questions worth 3 points each for a total of 120 points. Notes are not allowed unless they are in your accommodations. Place all of your answers on the bubble sheet. Do not write on this test. Fill in bubbles completely. Read all of the questions carefully. Select the choice that best answers the question. Number 1. How did the U.S. population distribution change between the Civil War and the 1920s? A. Suburbs appeared and prospered. B. Rural areas and farms multiplied. C. Cities stabilized as immigration slowed. D. Cities grew rapidly. Number 2. How did ethnicity and race contribute to the changes in the United States in the late 19th century? A. They caused separate schools to develop for different ethnic groups. B. They contributed to social stratification. C. They played a limited role. D. They contributed to the view of America as a melting pot. Number 3. How did building Central Park in New York City influence the work of urban planners? A. It emphasized the development of recreational areas as part of urban growth. B. It made it difficult for urban planners to buy the land they needed for similar projects. C. It forced planners to consider using skyscrapers. D. It set an unreasonable standard for most urban planners. Number 4. What was Jane Addams' Hull House in Chicago an example of? A. An urban hotel for women only. B. A political machine that operated to benefit immigrants. C. A settlement house open to assist the poor. D. A skyscraper that changed the look of the city. Number 5. What were the investigative journalists who uncovered corruption in business and government in the late 1800s and early 1900s called? A. Progressives. B. Muckrakers. C. Corruption correspondents. D. Sensationalists. Number 6. What was not examined by the investigative journalists in the late 19th and early 20th centuries? A. Violations in the meatpacking industry. B. Long hours required of sharecropping farmers. C. Brutal working conditions in mines and on railroads. D. John D. Rockefeller's corrupt practices at Standard Oil. Number 7. Which president oversaw the building of the Panama Canal, emphasized conservation, and established some national parks? A. Woodrow Wilson. B. William McKinley. C. Theodore Roosevelt. D. William Howard Taft. Number 8. How did Jim Crow laws, poll taxes, and literacy tests affect blacks in the period following the Civil War? A. They promoted economic independence for freed slaves. B. They helped make it possible for blacks to vote. C. They promoted segregation and denied blacks their rights. D. They had little effect on blacks. Number 9. Which Supreme Court decision allowed for the segregation of blacks in separate but equal facilities? A. Marbury v. Madison. B. Brown v. Board of Education. C. Plessy v. Ferguson. D. Dred Scott v. Stanford. Number 10. What was one of Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony's goals? A. Achieve voting rights in selected states. B. gain voting rights in exchange for restricting some employment opportunities for women. C. Gain immediate women's suffrage. D. Allow men to advocate for women's suffrage. Number 11. Which amendment gave women the right to vote? A. 16th. B. 17th. C. 18th. D. 19th. Number 12. The explosion on the USS Maine and yellow journalism contributed to the U.S. decision to go to war against Spain in 1898. What was another factor? A. Preventing Spain from attacking the United States. B. A treaty agreement with England. C. Protecting U.S. investments in Cuba. D. Stopping Cuba from nationalizing U.S. businesses. Number 13. What finally brought the United States into World War I? A. Unrestricted German submarine attacks on shipping. B. British and French request for support. C. The bombing of Pearl Harbor. D. To change to a more aggressive administration. Number 14. How did U.S. participation in World War I affect the American civilian population? A. Children over age 14 had to take jobs because there was a labor shortage. B. Fewer farmers were able to produce crops, so there were food shortages across the country. C. Civilians could not keep up with the supply demands of the military. D. With men drafted to serve in the military, jobs became available for women and minorities. Number 15. What was the purpose of the Espionage and Sedition Acts that were passed during World War I? A. To reduce debate and dissent over U.S. participation in the war. B. To prevent spies from gaining information about U.S. submarines. C. To eliminate communists from the United States. D. To protect civil liberties. Number 16. What was the major reason the U.S. Senate did not ratify the Treaty of Versailles? A. They believed that Germany was obligated to pay too much in reparations. B. They thought the League of Nations could supersede U.S. authority. C. They wanted the League of Nations to have more power than the treaty provided. D. They thought the German government should be run by a coalition of other nations. Number 17. Which is an accurate description of the 1920s? A. A period of chaos. B. An age of prosperity. C. An era of restraint. D. The Depression decade. Number 18. What resulted in an increase in organized crime and bootleggers and a ban on the sale of liquor during the 1920s? A. Passage of the 18th Amendment. B. The Supreme Court decision in Capone versus United States. C. Action by the Women's Christians Temperance Union. D. A relaxation in FBI attention in order to focus on communists. Number 19. Which was not a cause of the Great Depression? A. A bank crisis. B. High taxes on the wealthy. C. Stock speculation. D. Falling purchasing power. Number 20. What caused the October 1929 stock market crash? A. Falling stocks purchased on credit. B. Bank refusals to provide credit to businesses. C. Government overregulation. D. Investments in banks that failed. Number 21. How did many farmers deal with the Dust Bowl? A. They formed co-ops and purchased irrigation equipment. B. They developed drought-resistant strains of their crops and recovered from their losses. C. They closed off some farms and created joint areas where they shared water resources. D. They left their farms and traveled to California. Number 22. What were the main goals of Roosevelt's New Deal legislation? A. New institutions and buyouts of investments. B. Unemployment insurance and stabilization of the international economy. C. Relief, recovery, and reform. D. Assistance for the poor and recovery for the rich. Number 23. What finally brought the United States fully into World War II? A. Germany's invasion of Poland. B. Spain's choice to enter the war as an Axis ally. C. Italy's invasion of Ethiopia. D. Japan's bombing of Pearl Harbor. Number 24. What U.S. policies violated the constitutional rights of some citizens during World War II? A. Internment and detention of Japanese citizens in camps. B. Arresting protesters who wanted to voice concerns about the cost of the war. C. Preventing movie-tone news from showing casualties being returned home. D. Tapping the phones of suspected communists without warrants. Number 25. What could be considered the beginning of the Cold War? A. China's continued threat to invade Japan following World War II. B. Stalin's refusal to remove Soviet troops from Eastern Europe as agreed at Yalta in 1945. C. Germany's unwillingness to disarm and demilitarize per the peace agreement. D. Japan's demands for reparations from the Allies following the dropping of the atomic bombs. Number 26. Name the U.S. policy toward communism following World War II. A. Appeasement. B. Containment. C. Destruction. D. Propaganda. Number 27. How did the Korean War end? A. With a ceasefire and the establishment of a zone along the 38th parallel. B. With a treaty agreeing to a divided communist nation. C. With the establishment of one unified democratic country. D. With the Chinese assuming responsibility for monitoring the peace. Number 28. What was one result of increased consumer spending after World War II? A. Consumers overspent and fell into debt. B. The economy grew slowly. C. Growth occurred in basic items, but not in luxury goods. D. The economy grew quickly. Number 29. What was the baby boom? A. An epidemic that caused the deaths of many babies. B. A tax reduction experienced by parents with the birth of each child. C. The drop in birth rates following World War II. D. The significant population growth following World War II. Number 30. What helped propel John F. Kennedy to the presidency in the 1960 election? A. An army of young volunteers. B. Televised debates that communicated his charm. C. An inexperienced opponent in Richard Nixon. D. His prior experience as vice president. Number 31. What was one cause of the civil rights movement after World War II? A. Whites recognized the unjustness of the inequality between races. B. The government had passed some legislation that started the process. C. Students at major universities started advocating for civil rights. D. Blacks returned from military service to find Jim Crow laws still in place. Number 32. What was the outcome of the Cuban Missile Crisis? A. An unplanned explosion in Caribbean waters scared all nations into limiting nuclear power. B. The Soviet Union removed its missiles from Cuba, and the United States removed its missiles from Turkey. C. The United States agreed that it was up to the Cuban government to allow missiles or not. D. The United Nations intervened and achieved successful negotiations with all parties. Number 33. What theory did 4 U.S. presidents use to justify the Vietnam War? A. Bridge against communism. B. Domino theory. C. Solitary confinement. D. Monopoly theory. What did the 1960s counterculture embrace? A. Educational freedom and choice. B. Greater economic stability. C. Increased national security. D. Opposition to the establishment and traditional values. Number 35. What was one thing President Nixon did to improve relations with the Soviet Union? A. Established relations with China. B. Provided foreign aid to relieve Soviet poverty. C. Assured the Soviet Union a permanent seat on the United Nations Security Council. D. Supported Soviet actions in Eastern Europe. Number 36. What was one effect of the Watergate scandal on America? A. People questioned the workings of the court system. B. Most people began to appreciate the need to vote carefully in every election. C. People became more skeptical about politics and less trusting of government. D. Most people developed a deeper understanding of the powers of the executive branch. Number 37. How did President George H.W. Bush respond when other nations failed to support long-term U.S. involvement in the Persian Gulf War? A. He made special arrangements with Saddam Hussein. B. He took his case to the United Nations. C. He continued the fighting anyway. D. He withdrew U.S. troops. Number 38. Which was not an achievement of the Clinton administration? A. Reducing the federal debt balancing. B. Balancing the federal budget. C. Providing universal health care. D. Protecting women's rights. Number 39. What is the significance of September 11th, 2001? A. The Supreme Court ordered the recount of the Florida vote to stop. B. It marked the end of the Persian Gulf War against Iraq. C. The Soviet Union collapsed, officially ending the Cold War. D. Terrorists used airplanes to attack targets in the United States, killing thousands. Number 40. Who was responsible for the 2001 terrorist attacks aimed at driving Americans out of all Islamic nations? A. Hamas and Sheikh Ahmad Yassin. B. The Taliban and Mullah Muhammad Omar. C. Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden. D. Hezbollah and Hassan Nasrallah.